what a few games it has been to start the NBA season. I have been MIA, but I am back, ready to talk basketball.
I say few games. We're like 10 in, bro.
I know, I know. Well, 10 is still pretty new, but I feel like the 20 game mark is where you really start feeling like you understand things a little
Yeah.
more.
I
Um,
think Christmas generally is kind of my time where it's like once you get past Christmas and into the New Year's, that's when you start. Like your sample sizes are obviously a lot bigger than at that point. You start to follow some trends a little bit more because we are still kind of at the point of where we're in the in between of we're a long way from June, obviously. Like if you flash back to this time last year, for example, the easy one is Boston. Boston was floundering their rear ends off at this point last year. They went all the way to the finals. So, like we said, there's a lot of basketball left to play. But it is great to have you back, man. It's great. Like Justin is like legitimately, I feel like I probably have at this point. Like I've basically been in a relationship with Justin as long as I've been with my girlfriend at this point. Like it's 10 years. So it's kind of weird when I don't talk to Justin for 2 weeks. But shout out to our guys, Nick Grenowitz and Sam B. Albuquerque for holding it down. I appreciate you guys both. Go back and listen to those 2 episodes if you want to hear us talk some hoops. But definitely excited to have Justin back in the building because I need someone to be miserable with now that James Harden's going to be out for a month, right?
Yeah, and that's I guess our warm up is the James Harden injury, a right foot tendon strain is the official ruling. And here's the thing: the first thing I looked at was they don't have themselves an easy schedule going forward.
It's brutal.
Phoenix Monday, Hawks twice. They've got the Jazz, who are 6-3, surprisingly, and that's on a second night of a back to back. Then they've got the Bucks again, a back to back. That's not easy. The second game of that is the Timberwolves again, a not in theory easy game. And then you get Brooklyn Nets, which would be Ben Simmons' first time in Philly since being traded. So that one will be electric, but also Kevin Durant. So you can't write that one off. Then you got Cavs, Hawks, Grizzlies, and that's leading into the Thanksgiving game. So yeah, man, it's not an easy road, and they're already kind of not doing great, which is interesting. But also, I guess this gives Maxey a little more time to shine. I know he's been doing great this year in terms of numbers increase, which we assumed would. I mean, we saw what he did last year. He was a candidate for this. But something that I thought was interesting is their assist rate, their assist opportunity rate when Harden's on the floor is like 55%. When he's off, it drops down to like 40%. And Maxey already has played the most minutes this season. I believe this report came out yesterday, so I don't know if it fully changed, but Maxey already is leading the league in minutes played. Harden was right behind him in second, which shows probably why the injury came through. I mean, Harden's 33. We do have to have that like he's getting older conversation. You need to kind of chill out on his minutes possibly. So, Maxey, I guess probably getting more minutes, but it's like, how can you even do that really? But in theory, the defense can now be a little bit more focused if you replace Harden with a defensive minded guy like Thibault maybe. I know his offense isn't there, but you can kind of lean in on the defensive side of that a little bit more as well.
All right, well, you just really unpacked a lot, so I'm trying to I don't know where to start with it because I guess let's go back to the schedule because you're right because it's already off to a bad start because they lost to the Knicks last night in a game that they were up late. We can, I'm gonna end with Doc Rivers. I'll save that. But yeah, they are getting into a brutal point of the schedule. There's no way around it, and like you said, I believe they're 4-6 right now as of recording this podcast. The Eastern Conference is going to be tough. Like we've already talked about, Milwaukee, Boston, the obvious ones, and thankfully they're not alone in struggling. Like for example, Miami's kind of gotten off to a slow start as well. But look at the way that Cleveland is playing, for example, and how hot they've come out of the gate. A team like Toronto that's going to be good. Up and down the line. Like we've talked about this being a deeper Eastern Conference than it's been in a long time. I know these games again may not matter until June. How they're playing in June matters. This is a team that ideally has goals for that, but at the same time, like you don't necessarily want to shoot yourselves in the foot. I mean, look at Brooklyn last year. They stumbled into that 7th spot, ended up playing Boston in the first round, and just like that, it's over. Like if the Sixers were to, God forbid, be in an 8 or a 7 spot, you do look at a Milwaukee in the first round. And then what's the only thing that's worse than a second round exit, a first round exit for a team like this? And I know there'd be context, but I think that's something to watch. Now,
I think
granted,
I
that game
think I
against
think regardless of context, if the Sixers exit in the first round, like, yo, come on, we got to do
Well,
something,
all
man.
right. Like, let me be as clear as possible. The Sixers are a waste of time until Doc Rivers is fired. Like, Doc Rivers' rotations are just so egregious already. Once again, Paul Reed is not getting minutes for some particular reason. Like, they're a waste of time without Doc Rivers. And I know they barely all play together this year because Embiid's been on and off. Like, he missed the game against the Knicks the other night. Maxey, you said, has been playing great. I'm disappointed for Harden because, the conversation with Harden is, what was he going to look like this year? Is he going to play himself back into shape? This is kind of a prove it year. And so far, the results have been pretty good. I mean, overall, games of 35-7, 31-9, 29-11,
did see his
23-17 against the Wizards in the win the other night. Like,
I did
Harden
see
looks
his usage rate was like way up compared to his few games with the Sixers last year when he got
Yeah,
traded
early
over.
on, especially, it was a lot, and I think that they're going to have to get away with that. But again, I think it's tough because they are still all learning how to play together. Like, James
Mhm.
Harden was only here half a year last year. Once again, there are a lot of new faces in the mix in Philly, and I think that's the biggest thing right now is they're just not going to get the time to gel together. It's like you've got Harden out a month, so you've got Embiid, who, again, I don't want Embiid having to play heavy early minutes, and now you're staring down the barrel of having to do that because with Harden out, somebody has to go out there with Maxey and keep them afloat. So great. I'm relying on Joel Embiid early as he comes off injuries from last playoffs and to worry about winning November and early December games. Like, it's just a peak, not ideal situation for the Sixers right now. And again, with the schedule happening, it makes it a little tough.
Well, and I would say too with the Embiid thing, I know something I heard a lot because I was listening a lot to Philly radio when I was up there. He had come in essentially not in shape, and that was from the injuries and all that stuff. He wasn't really able to keep himself there. So you would imagine with Embiid, as the season goes on, as long as there's no injuries, his overall healthiness, in shapeness will come to fruition, you know?
Yeah, no, 100%. And again, I think with Harden being out, Maxey picking up the usage is not going to be the worst thing in the world. Like, he's just going to run more point.
Yeah.
They'll probably play some Furkan Korkmaz, more Shake Milton off the bench. But like, Doc Rivers, man, I'm so tired of watching this dude's rotations. Like, it's just so uninspiring right now with Doc. And I think that is like, it, it's a constant, it just feels like a cap, and not to, be like everybody else, but I look at the Phillies and what they did when they fired Joe Girardi and how much they instantly improved. Like, I do, that's probably the one thing I'm optimistic about right now is I'm hoping the Sixers do so bad in this schedule that they finally pull the trigger and fire Doc and put Sam Cassell in that head coaching spot. I think that's the right decision.
Do you think it happens before Thanksgiving?
I mean, it depends how bad they flounder and how bad it looks. So here's the thing: if Harden's not playing and Embiid is missing time, it does kind of build in an excuse for Doc Rivers. But I
Mhm.
don't know. Like, I watched that Sixers Knicks game last night, and that was just a perfect microcosm of Doc Rivers. Like, you had a double-digit lead in the fourth quarter,
And you
the
blew it.
offense completely cratered, and you had questionable lineups out there. Like, there was a point where he was playing Paul Reed and Montrezl Harrell together. Like, what on earth is that do? Like, what is that? Like, it's inexplicable anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm frankly, just as a fan, beyond tired of the leash that Doc Rivers has been given. Like, this dude should have been fired at the end of last year. And it's like, he's actively holding the team back at this point. Get a new face in there and see if it shakes it up a bit. Because just Doc Rivers ain't it. And he hasn't been for a long time. And I feel like everyone in the NBA knows that except the Sixers for some reason.
I find it interesting too because somebody that's not getting a lot of usage is also the highest paid player on the team this year, Tobias Harris. I know last year during the season, we were at points where we wanted him traded, but we also saw probably the best showing we've seen from him in the playoffs of last year. His points per game right now are 13 points. He's shooting about 10 a game, and that's definitely the lowest since a long time ago, since he came into the season, essentially. So like that. Tobias could be another person that if you can tap into playoff Tobias and play that kind of person, he could probably get that shots per game, those points up a little bit more. And I know mid-season drive and dish us hearing me say that would probably be like, no, like don't even go down that road.
Well, it's not ideal, but I agree with you 100%. Like, I think that is something that will happen. Like, you have to, and I think you saw it last night. I think Tobias Harris had like 24 points last night. Like, they're going to
Yeah,
have to go
yeah,
to him because they need an offensive option. Tobias Harris has his lowest usage rate because this is the first season in a while where he's probably been, the fourth option on the team, which
yeah.
is what they brought him in to be initially when it was Ben and Jimmy and Joel. Like, now at this point, you're right. Your first three are Joel and Harden and Tyrese, and then Tobias is the fourth guy. But yes, in Harden's absence and without Embiid's continuous absence as well, like, again, I think he'll come back. He's got a non-COVID illness right now.
Mhm.
But yeah, I would expect Tobias's usage rate to tick up. Maybe there's a situation where I wouldn't rule a trade out. Like, I'm pulling up his contract as we speak. I'm trying to think if I don't remember if there's another year after this or not.
I thought I feel like last year we were saying this was the last year of him if we couldn't get a trade done, which might have been why we weren't like super worried about the trigger not being pulled if it
Well,
wasn't.
yeah, because you would probably have had to attach a pick to it. All right, so they got one more year after
Yeah.
this year. He's got this year, and then there's one more.
Okay.
I think they could very well trade him. I mean, especially this offseason. Like, with it being an expiring deal, like, there would be teams, non-contenders and things like that would eat the salary if you can get a pick attached to it. I think
Lakers,
there is a chance he gets
Lakers,
moved during the season, but
Lakers
not
probably
right
want
now.
him. Lakers probably want him.
What are the Lakers going to get? That's what's crazy is like the Lakers aren't going to give the Sixers anything better than Tobias Harris. Like, I would
Hey,
rather keep Tobias at that point.
we need a point guard. Westbrook's on the block.
No, Justin, I will. Oh my God, we will. This will be what will stop the podcast. It will be the Sixers trading Russell Westbrook. I know he's playing a little better off the bench recently, but like, don't even put that into the air.
The podcast was on notice for a little bit there. I know I didn't get to talk about that, but man, with the Sixers coming out slow, I was like, yo, we probably
Well,
should.
I said 0-6, and I was like, they had games against the Spurs and the Pacers. Like, I was hoping, like, you lose to the Bucks and the Celtics, whatever. Like, I'm not thrilled about it, but I'm not super concerned about it. They lost to the Spurs, and it was like,
Uh-oh.
I
Yeah,
gotta be a man.
I was like,
be a man of my word.
that's what I'm saying is like, dude, I might not even get to do another episode this whole season if that's the case, if the Sixers really blow it like that. But to that, we talked about it when Maxi's on. So this is something I was looking at too. When Maxi is on the court, the Sixers allow 115 points per 100 possessions, but when he's off, which is only 92 minutes, by the way, that goes down to 105. So Maxi's defense is a big part of something that could be concerning.
Well, he's tiny. Like, that's just the reality of it. Like, the dude is tiny. Like, his speed is
That's
electric,
why
and
I
he's
think
got
like
quick hands to steal the ball sometimes.
right.
But like, yeah, there are just at the end of the day, there are limitations there. I mean, that was the biggest thing early on. Is the Sixers' transition defense was just horrible. It was
But
like
that's what I
worse than the
think
league bad at one point.
is if you have that, then now with Harden being out, you can throw a defensive minded guy out there with
Yeah.
Maxey to try to help out with that a little bit. I think that's a spot you could explore a little bit more and see where it goes from there.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I mean, they're going to have to. You're going to hope the depth steps up the way that, we talked about its improvement. You're going to need it to step up here.
Mm-hmm.
But I am like it sounds like terrorism, but I'm just rooting for the Sixers to lose for Doc Rivers to get fired at this point. Like, I'm kind of there. I think it's a punted season with Doc Rivers again. Like, I don't know what it's going to be in general, but I know I'm very confident that at Doc Rivers or with Doc Rivers at this point, the Sixers are not winning a damn meaningful thing.
Well, and I mean, you look at it 4-6 to start the season. They have only won one game at home, which is kind of surprising, actually, if you think about it. But it's not good vibes. And maybe the Sixers can be like the Celtics from last year and have their 2-week in player only meeting. Coach gets out, although I don't remember that happening with Udoka was already there.
Udoka
Right?
was there. No, Udoka
Yeah.
was there the whole time. Yeah, no, they
So
didn't
so
fire anybody.
so maybe that could be the difference that the Sixers do is just change the coach and then by the end we're talking about them being in the top 3 again. So as of right now, I mean I don't see much changing by if the coaching stuff doesn't change and Embiid's out and obviously Harden's out, I mean, we could be going into December and it could be not looking great.
Oh, I just like vibes matter, and
Mhm.
we're gonna get into that with Brooklyn a little bit, but I think that'll be a theme of this episode. Like I look at the top of the Eastern Conference right now, and you look at how Milwaukee is playing and how they play together, and you look at how Cleveland has played together in their 7-1 start, and just the joy that like
Mhm.
it's palpable when they're on the court together. You don't get any of that watching the Sixers, and you haven't for quite a while. Like
Let me
that's just the reality with it.
I mean, looking at it, I would say contenders right now, and again, I'm just doing a quick glance.
Hang on, Justin. We got to save this for the show because this is what we're gonna get into later. And I
Yeah,
don't want to get too far. We're
sorry.
15
Yeah.
minutes in. I'm not gonna hijack you. Welcome everybody to the Driving Dish NBA podcast. My name is Kevin Rayfuse. Joining me, as always, my co-host Justin Kuzart.
Now, when I need the rest, I can't sleep.
Um, I mean, me apparently on Wednesdays when I was really excited to sleep in and just couldn't sleep in at all.
Mm.
Let's see who's a good random player to go? Maybe because he's flamethrower. How about Laurie Markkinen?
No, this one's LeBron.
Oh, okay. Oh, all right. Good, good. Quite the opposite of Laurie Markkinen.
Yep, yep.
But no, we got a jam-packed show, and the reason I cut Justin off is because Justin is here for the first time in 2 weeks. So later on in the show, after Ballin' and Fallin', we are going to kind of go around the horn with Justin, get his takes on what we've seen in the first, 2.5 weeks of the season so far now. Takeaways early on, which of these teams are for real, what's for not. So stay tuned for that later. We are going to talk some more Brooklyn as well. I didn't think we possibly could talk more Brooklyn or it could get wilder than it did after Sam and I chatted last week, but lo and behold, we have. So that'll be coming up a little bit after the break as well. But leave us a review on iTunes. We will read them, good or bad. If you're not an Apple user, Google Play Store, Spreaker, Spotify, Amazon Music, TuneIn, Stitcher, anywhere you find a podcast, you can find us.
And we are on YouTube. I guess I should give us a little YouTube check because I haven't seen if we've added a follower.
We did. I think we're at, I believe we're going for 53 or 54 now.
Yeah.
I know for sure we hit 52.
Yep,
So
we're
where are you
going
at?
for 53.
Okay, going for
We're going for
53.
53.
I feel like there's a good 53 in the NBA.
53.
Oh, Artis Gilmore wore 53. Yeah, and he's a Jacksonville guy. So
Yeah,
yeah, no,
I
that's
saw
a
him
good one. Yeah,
recently.
Artis Gilmore definitely like ABA legend, 17-year career. So
Yes.
yeah, no, that's a good Artis Gilmore's a good one to get. So shout out to whoever gets 53.
I think I saw him. When would I have seen him? I think I saw him at the Players Tournament last year.
Yeah, he was at the did you go to the I'm trying to remember because we went to 2 preseason games. Jacksonville's hosting a couple NBA preseason
Oh,
games at
yeah, the
one point.
Pelicans was one.
We went to the Pelicans game for sure because I remember that because there's the picture of me and Tim with Pierre the Pelican, which is hilarious. There's man, I'm trying to remember the other one we went to. It might have been Atlanta and New Orleans or something like that. But Artis Gilmore was there, and that's my point. Like he was at the
Mhm.
game, like as a rep for the NBA.
Yeah, well, and I remember, like, at the Players, like, we were walking, literally just, like, in a crowd of people, and then obviously he's, like, massively taller than everybody,
Oh
and
yeah.
I was like, "This guy's gotta be a," like, we're a few steps behind him. I was like, "That guy's gotta be an NBA player." And then he turned around, and I was like, "Oh, it's Artis. Yeah, of course." And of course, at the time, I was working with, the sports station here, so we were talking to him for a little bit. Um, but yeah, I was like, "What are you doing just, like, walking around in the crowd of people? Like, you should be in where, like, the big timers go." And he's like, "I like being, I like walking around." So,
What and that's the beauty of like he kind of it stinks because in a way you're right. They should be way more recognized, but like that's kind of the dope part of being a 70s and 80s legend, right? Is that if people hear your name, they're gonna go, "Oh yeah, that dude was great." But they may
mhm.
not recognize you, so you can still kind of move around a little bit and just do regular things. Like that's the part of being like that's the thing for me where it's like I never want to be famous because I just don't want to
I
like
would
I would
be
never want to not be able to do regular things, you know what I mean?
I would be like, if I were famous, I would be like Marshmello or Daft Punk, where you wear
Right,
like
put the helmet on, exactly, yeah.
you know Marshmello's a Philly guy. You know Marshmello was at every Phillies game and nobody knew who the hell he was. He was able to sit in seat 309. You know, like it was not a problem for him and he was vibing out, having fun. Or he was in LA doing a show. I don't know. But but like you know what I mean? Like he can go do those events and it's not going to like he's not gonna be swarmed the whole time.
We have a lot of hoops to talk about, but I went to game 3 of the World Series, and it was
I'm
a
jealous.
religious experience. It was I will, like and we might lose this series, like, we're down 3-2 as we're recording this, like, when this episode drops, it may be over.
Yeah.
But that was man,
I was up there. I was more in Amish country though. I was in Lancaster for a wedding.
love Lancaster.
And I was supposed to so we flew in from Orlando to Harrisburg because Harrisburg is
Okay.
closer than Philly. Which by the way, other than the flight, because it was like a Frontier flight, other than the flight being uncomfortable, I would take that a million times over having to go to the Philly airport. So
Oh, dude, I love Trenton's airport for that regard too, because Trenton is like way like if at least for well, and for where you are too, like our parents both live in the burbs. Like
yeah.
Trenton is an hour away, and Philly with traffic is
Well,
generally about an
my
hour
parents
away. So
my parents are now in Ocean City. They moved.
that's
So
true, right? Yeah,
but
that's
but
right.
I
They're
can do
they
like
are. They're beach bums now.
but we're looking at for like Thanksgiving, right? Like I can fly Jacksonville to Philly and they can pick me up, or I can rent a car from Philly, or I can do an hour and a half, maybe 2 hour drive down to the Sanford airport in Orlando, which again
Yep.
is a small one, not
Dude,
a
that
problem.
airport is nice. I flew out
Yes,
of there one time, and it was
yes,
one of my last flights out of Orlando, and I was stuck because
dude.
like Orlando International Airport is a big airport, obviously,
It's a
because with all the people
dumpster
coming to
fire.
Disney and the theme
It is
parks, like
a dumpster fire.
yeah, it goes to a lot of places, but like I figured I'm like, well, how nice could it be? There's only one airline that flies out of there. Like you just figured it would be kind of a
Nice.
small random terminal. Like it was
Really.
really nice.
And the Harrisburg one was too. So now I found out the Sanford one flies direct to Atlantic City, which is not far
I didn't
from
even know Atlantic
Ocean
City
City.
had an airport, but yeah, that makes a ton of
Yeah.
sense.
So I'm like, I was telling my wife, I was like, we can do it's like, what do you value more? Dealing with the Philly airport traffic and stress, or are you cool with an hour and a half drive? Probably a little more expensive pay to park at the Sanford airport.
No, it's not. No, compared to who? Compared to what?
Well, like in Jacksonville, we have like those
Oh, well, yeah, Jacksonville's
four
nice.
ninety
Jacksonville's
nine a
super cheap.
day.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. Whereas like there, I think they're like 17 a day. And if we're going for like a week, that actually can be a little expensive. So I don't know. We're gonna figure that out. But that's off basketball topic. That's a whole nother we can do a whole podcast of us just talking about other shit. Um, but either way, yes, if you want to be number 53, the artist Gilmore of the podcast, go find us Drive and Dish NBA on YouTube. And we put up video versions of the podcast there.
And now a word from our sponsors.
So we pick up on the Nets drama because I think what they said is we already have so much drama going on. Why not add more?
I didn't think there was a possible way we could talk more Brooklyn after Sam and
do.
I did last week, or that it would change this radically.
And it has. I mean, there's a lot going on. And so you'll have to catch me up because I know you guys already talked a little bit about Kyrie and all that. But on top of that, coaching change, and they're not playing well, and
Yeah.
Ben Simmons is hurt and not looking great, which I think all Sixers fans are secretly excited about. But I mean, dude, this is that this is quite literally the meme of it's fine and everything's on fire and it's like I'm fine.
It was like so where we left off last time was Kyrie had just had the presser, like
Okay.
the first one, the bad one.
Or he didn't apologize. Yeah.
Right, where he just said all sorts of ridiculous nonsense. And then it was they hadn't even fired. So it was classic podcast. So like I did the episode with Sam, and then the next day Steve Nash got fired. And
Yep.
so we haven't even talked about all that yet. So
Okay.
I guess I'll start with Kyrie because Kyrie is the most recent thing. So Kyrie has now been suspended for 5 games. He missed last night, so we're at 4 as of recording this podcast. In theory, I guess they say it's indefinitely. He's posted a way more thorough apology on Instagram. So whoever, his PR person finally got a handle on that. Nike has suspended his deal with him or their deal with him. They're, pausing the Kyrie 8 was supposed to come out this year. He's been, Kyrie Irving is not LeBron or Michael Jordan, obviously, in terms of sales over at Nike, but like Kyrie Irving has been like, he's had his own signature sneaker for a while. Like you're on an eighth model of it. Like there are a lot of people who have been wearing and playing in Kyrie Irving sneakers for a long time.
Didn't
This is,
Tim have Kyrie shoes?
I
I think
believe
he used
so.
to.
And I like them because they were a little they're not low tops. Like I would worry about the ankle in low tops
Yeah,
all the
yeah,
time. Like
yeah.
that's why I would never want. And they weren't as heavy as LeBron's. LeBron's are very, very heavy. But yeah, but that's completely suspended right now. Nike has pulled the Kyrie stuff off their website. And I mean, like, look, this is spiraled out of control because initially it feels like Brooklyn didn't want to do anything at all. Now we're at a point where he's suspended indefinitely. And look, it's a classic lesson in self-destruction. It's just I said last week that I'm sick of Kyrie. I'm tired of I just like I'm out of excuses and I'm out of patience for this anymore. Like
Can we
I
go
wouldn't
can we go back to, Kyrie when he thought the earth was flat? Remember when he was doing that? That one,
right.
fine. Let's talk about that again. Like,
It's
let's go
just
back to
like
that.
I mean, it is. I've never seen a player that I mean, frankly, is pretty likable coming into the league. One of the best ball handlers, super dynamic, wins a title, hits one of the biggest shots in Cavaliers franchise history. But I don't know how you can look at now the culmination of everything that's happened from the end of his time in Cleveland to the tenure in Boston to everything that's happened here in Brooklyn, which has now just reached its most ridiculous peak and apex, it feels like.
Oh, don't
I
say
don't
that. He might find another way to keep it going up. You know what I mean?
I
Like,
mean, he's certainly there already. Like if you I don't even want to talk about the points that are in that documentary. And look, I just think if anything, I'm disappointed in how little NBA players, because I don't really think any at this point have come out and said, "Yo, Kyrie
LeBron
Irving,
has.
like what the hell are you doing?"
LeBron just came out this morning. I heard his comments, talking about how it was hurtful and everything he said is obviously very hurtful to, uh, people that are affected by the comments in that documentary. So,
I
but
just like
even
Kyrie.
so, it feels like, and I think Marks has come out and said something too. But to me, it's from anybody inside the Nets organization making a comment now, it's too late. Suspending him now, it's too late. Like it should have been earlier. And I understand that, like, it has progressed to be even bigger, and so that's maybe why they decided to take the action. But to me, like, if you were gonna take the action, it should have been on Tuesday or whenever you guys first talked about it. That's when it should have been like, we can't do this. Like,
Oh,
that's when you need to make the ruling.
Yeah, their initial statement from Josiah or whatever was just basically like, "Hey, like I'm
We're gonna
disappointed. I'm gonna have a conversation with him." Kevin
Yeah.
Durant said he came out and he was disappointed that the Nets just basically allowed this to become a thing, more or less. And where I'm like, no, I'm disappointed in Kyrie sharing nonsense, like anti-Semitic nonsense like that. It's just, uh, and for Kyrie, someone who has been on the right side and progressively active on a number of social issues involving communities that have a harder time in this country, it's pretty disappointing then to just flat out be racist and hateful towards another group that has had those issues as well. It's beyond disappointing. And I mean, it's something that again, it's a little alarming to me that if anything, I've seen more NBA players kind of soft back Kyrie. Like Kyle Kuzma said something like,
Yeah.
"Oh, there's not free speech anymore." When it's like, yo,
Well,
free speech
no, no, no,
doesn't.
no.
No, there is free speech. He was
He said,
allowed to tweet that nonsense. There's just not speech from being there's not protections from being an idiot and
well,
having
Kuzma
consequences for being an idiot.
Kuzma, which the way you said that he said it, I think actually makes him look better, for lack of a way to put it. He said, "We can't tell the truth anymore," which
Oh, yeah,
implies,
that's
yeah,
like tell the truth about
yeah,
what? About the Alex
exactly.
Jones conspiracy theory about the documentary that quotes Hitler towards Jewish people? Like,
Right. It's
F
not good.
off.
And so then on top of that, they've lost 6 of their first 8 games to start the season. Ben Simmons is out with knee soreness. We already had audio of Kyrie telling Ben to shoot, and he didn't. So that's like already under the microscope. And then Steve Nash gets fired. Um, which I guess is, if I remember correct, kind of what KD wanted last year anyway.
That's why this is crazy. They're like, they brought Steve Nash back. We're locked in. And like, look, I think Steve Nash, it clearly wasn't working there. And I think Steve Nash probably is honestly relieved at this point, given the way that's everything it's been. But it's almost
You
like,
see
well,
him
then
get
why
kicked
didn't you
out.
fire him in the offseason and came to KD then? And because you're already moving on from Steve Nash. But on top of it, that's where this even gets crazier. It's not even the fact that they've hired Steve Nash and they brought Jacques Vaughn in. It's the fact that they're going to hire Ime Udoka. They have a gasoline fire burning right now, and they're going to pour some more on it. We don't even know that Ime Udoka is clear from this sexual harassment allegation going on in Boston right now. And I know everything is consensual, but that dude was suspended for a full year after leading his team to the NBA finals. That does not happen without something going on there. And
Right.
I think a lot of people want to know what happened. A, because I think Brooklyn in that case has a lot to answer to. And B, I think the players in Boston are rightfully confused because they had the same reaction that I did when it said Brooklyn's going to hire him, where it was like, how is this even possible? Like,
What?
is he
Yeah.
under contract? Like, how can he walk? Like, what is
Yeah.
going on?
So they might trade. I was reading about that. They might have to trade depending. Like I think they that's what's being
No,
discussed
Boston's
now.
letting him walk.
They let him
Boston said,
walk.
and that to me is alarming. You
At
just
least,
let your coach of the year walk for nothing. You didn't get a draft pick for it.
yeah, at
Like,
least get a draft pick, or at least
something happened.
what was it that Kyle Korver was essentially traded for? A washing machine or something like
No,
that?
so it was a copier or something like that.
At least get that. But no, yeah, man, and I know ESPN had to issue apology yesterday. I think Jalen Rose came out and was like demanding to know the woman's name, which is obviously not great. So he apologized for that. But I do agree, like it's wild that he's essentially suspended for a year. And if I understand it correct, when this is all done, could be coaching like next week. Right?
Right, on
Because
one
he's
of their
not a
rivals.
senior
Like,
from the NBA, he's there for the Boston, like, he's not allowed to coach for Boston, he can coach for another team.
and so the NBA didn't suspend him,
Oh,
and that is where the thing here is. It's like Boston let him go. He wasn't under contract. The NBA did not suspend Ime Udoka. Like, this was a violation of
team
a
thing.
team rule,
They let it be a
essentially.
team thing, yeah.
But like, guys, he got suspended for a full year and might
Something's
not be
gotta be
brought
bad,
back the year
yeah.
after. Like, something happened. It's the fact that it's like, yo, he might credibly be accused of sexual misconduct, and you didn't even wait for the dust to clear before you went on and hired him. Like, it's one thing if the investigation ends and there's like the
Well,
punishment has been paid and we all decide, because they did make a point to say that nothing criminal has happened. And I do think that that is extremely
that's fair.
important. Like, no one is accusing Ime Udoka of being a criminal, but like, Brooklyn, with everything going on, and like, is this the right move? I don't. I feel like this sends the wrong message,
Here's
which is the
I
nice
agree.
way of saying it.
I agree, and I think if I'm trying to get into their headspace is it's already a dumpster fire now, why not add fire to the fire so that when it goes out, everything is settled? That's
Well,
literally the
yeah, they're
only justification.
no, their justification is that they're the worst team in defense, and that Ime Udoka just led them to the finals last year by making Boston the best defense in the league.
That's
Like,
true.
the X's and O's part of it completely makes sense. Ime Udoka is a great coach. If this didn't happen, he'd be coaching Boston, and that's kind of
Right.
the point. It's like no one is talking about Ime Udoka being a bad coach. It's the fact that you didn't even wait to find out what happened before you hired this guy.
Yeah.
Like, that's a really
Well, maybe
bad
they
message to send to every woman that works in the NBA.
I agree, and do you think I mean, have the Nets come out and said anything like, "We have talked and worked with the team that did the independent,
Well, they haven't hired
polling?"
him yet officially. So that's
Right,
the thing is, it's
so
like,
maybe
I
they're
don't
going for
think,
that.
like, we'll see what happens when they formally hire him. But like, Woj and Shams say it's imminent, and both
Yeah,
sides have talked in Boston. I mean, the way Marcus Smart reacted, Marcus Smart was like, I don't get what's going on, because how is he not like, he got suspended for us, but now he's going to go coach up our rivals? Like, not even before. I mean, like we said, we're a month, couple weeks, not even into the season. Like, and he's already going to be going for this. It's that to me is a bad, in a double week of bad looks. Like, we're not even talking about the Spurs lawsuit with Josh Primo.
yeah,
And again, that's something, I'm going to kind of let the dust settle on a little bit more. But like, Primo, they're accused of having known that Primo is exposing himself to women for 10 months. It's just like, this has not been a good week for the NBA, man. It's really like, it's been a bad week of headlines for the NBA. And someone summed it up perfectly. I wish I remembered who this was so I could give them their credit on Twitter, but it's like, man, Draymond Green punching a teammate seems so tame in comparison right now.
right. You thought him punching Jordan Poole out was bad. This is Draymond sitting back going, "Wow, let's let's just fade into the background here with all this. I don't even have to worry about it anymore."
It's a mess. We'll see what happens, obviously, because we're not done. Like, we'll see if Udoka gets hired. they won last night. Kevin Durant looked great. He's looked great the whole season. That really hasn't been the issue. Like there are plenty of X's and O's things to talk about too. But I mean, Brooklyn
But
right
that's the
now
thing,
is out of play in
we haven't
position. They're
we haven't even gotten to the X's and O's part of it.
no, they're 3-6. Like they still have a lot of work to do
I
defensively. But
know.
that's what's crazy is like no one is focused on the X's and O's. Like Kevin Durant, it feels like he's averaging. I think he's averaging 33 points a game, and just
Yeah.
it doesn't matter because no one cares. Because yeah, there's a lot going on right now. I mean, I'm glad Kyrie got suspended finally. It stinks that it was a reactive suspension and not a proactive suspension. It's just like, yo, the NBA can't be so progressive on all these other issues and then just like be like, oh, whatever. Kyrie's doing what he's doing. It makes you think that guys believe it. And that to me it's not acceptable. Like
Mhm.
you can't have one form of like, you can't be against one form of racism and then uh, it's a little different with anti-Semitism, I guess, because it's not a race, but like you can't hate one group of people or be against hating one group of people and then go out and hate another and spread nonsense like that. Like that's just the thing is it's like, there are plenty of atrocities with Jewish people over the history. I don't think we need to go do that over and over again. What I tell people all the time is it's like, the Holocaust wasn't even 100 years ago.
Mhm.
Like this is recent. This is new. The
Well,
same way that I tell people that the civil rights movement and was in the 60s and not that long ago either. Like it's still going on.
and
But
that's what I
one
say.
does not excuse the other.
Even while all this was going on, the Kanye stuff going on, it's like, yo, this is still going on in 2022. Like, what are we doing?
I don't even want to talk about Kanye West. I don't think, and this is a Shea Serrano tweet, but it's like, it really is. Like, I don't think I've cared about an artist more than I did at their peak with Kanye West compared to the amount that I do now.
Mhm.
Like, I'm not listening to the music. Like, I'm not listening to anything new. Um, if some of the old songs come on, I'm still gonna bump him. I'm not gonna lie. Like, he's not a criminal or anything like he's not like R. Kelly, for example, where it's like, oh, this is a little weird. No,
Well,
I'm not
see,
gonna do that.
we
Um,
had that conversation on our radio station. Me and my boss was like, we don't play a ton of it of Kanye's music, but there's a few songs that he's on where he's like the featured artist with like a Katy Perry or whatever, and we just switched to playing the one that doesn't have him.
well, I forgot about ET. I
Yeah,
forgot about that record was everywhere when I was lifeguarding. Man.
yeah, yeah. And
Um,
now, it's one of those things. It's like we don't want to you know do that. So that's where we are with it now. But even so, like it's just there's so much of that going on, and I find myself looking at it like, damn, we are in 2022 and we are still doing this game.
this is a bad week all around. I mean, I don't want to just keep the depression going, but I feel like where it almost fits in well. Like I want to say RIP to Takeoff.
Oh yeah.
Justin, I think of hanging out with you and Jeremy Gold in Jacksonville when I think of the Migos music. Like that was so, I mean, just living in that region and how much they had a vice grip on just the radio and the sound
M-
from
Migos.
2014 when they bubbled all the way,
Yeah.
all the way up until really recently when they've been splitting, but even then, like still with their solo records and things like that, like they truly had people like you want to talk about like their own style that everybody
Mhm.
began imitating and what they did to production and what they did to just that Atlanta sound, how they carried it. I mean, he was 28 years old, and it's just like
Yeah.
rappers are getting
Which is
killed
which
every
made
other
me
week, it feels
which
like, and it's just exhausting. As a fan of the genre, like it's really sad to just consistently see these guys become targets like this.
What it made me think the other day, I was like, "Dang, he was only 28? How old was he when they got into it?" Like, they were
18.
probably like yeah, they were
Yeah,
young,
18.
man. I was joking with my buddies, the song that we used to it was, like, right after college, we used to, pregame with was Fight Night,
Yeah,
by
that's my
Migos.
Instagram bio. You know that.
And my buddy, well, you know him, TJ's like, "I've never heard that song before in my life." I was like, "Get out of here! You've never heard this." He knew other Migos songs. He knew like "Walk It" and all that, but he's like, "I've never heard this." I was like, "Stop! We
It was
pregame to this
all
like
over the radio. It
every
was on
weekend."
Power. It was on Power 106 every other song, I feel like,
Yeah,
and I was banging it every other time.
yeah. I still think the song that lives on the most for them right now, at least for me, is "Bad and Boujee" because people keep doing these dope sounding remixes with it
Yeah,
with
Takeoff's not
other
on it
songs.
though. That's what makes
I
me
know,
sad though. It's like
I
Takeoff's
know.
not on it. Though I love that meme that he got in that
Which
interview. Who said I got left off Bad and Bougie?
Yeah. Which I listen to it, I'm always, like, trying to figure out who had the better verse in each song now, I'm like, who was better in this song?" And it's
When that
I mean,
song came
all
out,
these songs are just bangers, though.
when Bad and Bougie came out, I went. drove from Jacksonville to Asheville, North Carolina to
Ooh.
meet up with my college roommates. And so that's about a 6-hour drive. And Justin, I must have played that song probably like 9 times in those 6 hours. Like I kept repeating it and running it. And I would remember driving up I-26 and like going through the mountains and stuff like that. Yeah, that was one of those for me. I mean, when we were in Jacksonville, like when we were in our 20s and going out, it was fight night. It was Handsome and Wealthy. It was Hannah Montana.
Oh,
It was
yeah, I
Versace.
forgot about
Yeah, it was Versace, obviously, with Drake. Like those were the like, but I do like that sound had a grip on radio. And I do. I think about like us going out to the beach, like all those songs being on late at night.
you need
And
a
they're all fun. I think of Jeremy Gold just dancing to Look at My Dab for the zillionth time. Like
oh, forgot about
it's
that one.
just sad, man. Like
I,
that was I woke up in the morning and that was one of the first things I saw. And it's like, usually music deaths are always like, they always certain hit differently, but like, man, that was tough for me to see that
yeah,
early in the morning.
and so young is really the main part of it, but, um, there was a video going around, and didn't wanna
Yeah,
watch it.
that's nasty, and the pictures too. Like that's another thing that a completely separate thing. But people are way too desensitized with what they post on the internet. Like there is no planet where that man's dead body just needed to be shared the way it was, or anyone in general. Like I don't need to see someone bleeding out from a gunshot wound on
Mhm.
my timeline. Like that's normal. Like that's somebody's son. That's somebody's family member. Like
Yeah.
on top of all the other people there
Well,
who are clearly hurt by it and like are having
yeah,
to like now see that trauma projected on the internet. Like I don't think we need to the internet has done a lot of things in that regard, but it's like I don't think people need to just watch that all the time, like
I
and have it be
agree.
that accessible because it's
I
not hard
agree,
to find either.
and it was so early in the morning that obviously the news broke that I already know there was no way everyone in the immediate family was told before the news was out there somewhere, and I couldn't imagine finding out about somebody that you care so deeply about from an internet video, and the video is that person not alive. Like, that's the part that just always got me. So, we don't have to keep harping on the internet and its problems, but let's just say if you look up what the Amish people think about the internet, they're not far off in their opinions, I think.
Yeah, they might be right. Low key, Amish people got it just off the grid, chilling
You
on
know,
their own thing.
I almost got run off the road by a horse and carriage in
The
Lancaster.
most Lancaster thing I've ever heard in my life. Oh my god, it still blows people's minds when they go out there for the first time. I love it.
Nicole was so thrown off by it. Like, she was like, "What just happened?" I was like, "We got passed by a horse and a carriage." She was like, "I am so confused."
It's first time for everything. You gotta love it. All right, who's
Mhm.
balling? Who's falling? Our NBA version of the stock market. We always like to start with the good before the bad. Balling for me this week, man. Luka Doncic. You talk about MVP start to a MVP campaign. I guess I should say this man is 8 games into the season and hasn't dropped less than 30 points in a game. His low is 31 in a loss against Oklahoma City back on October 29th. 35 points last night in a really impressive 1 point win against the Raptors, 33 against the Jazz the other night, 44 against the Magic. The Mavericks 5-3 to start the season. So, I think their depth has been what they've needed it to be largely as well. Really intrigued by how Christian Wood has been playing. But yeah, Luka, man, what a heater of a start to the season he's been on.
What's wild to me is if you look it up, Kevin Durant and Luka have the same amount of total points this season,
That is wild.
288. It
Yeah.
is when you think about the vibes between the 2 players right now is very, very opposite. Although everyone's saying Kevin Durant's playing well, it's just I think the team stuff too. Um, but yeah, Luka's been on a tear. That was one of the things that I was gonna bring up in my, like, observations is even though I was kind of removed from basketball because I was in, like, wedding mode with people and traveling all the time, I was still hearing the vibes that, like, Luka is torching it right now.
Yeah. No,
Which makes
great
it
start to the season.
even crazier that Kevin Durant and him have the same amount of points. If anybody's wondering, Curry is in 3rd with about 10 points less. Um Top 5 is Giannis and DeRozan right after that. Then our boy Maxey.
Okay.
So that's actually interesting. But either way, my ballin going out to the Kings, the Sacramento Kings, who
Okay.
who are currently in 13th place, 2-5 this season. That is not why they're balling. They brought out a bat signal. The Sacramento Kings debuted a new Kings Victory beam on their stadium. It is a single purple beam powered by 4 lasers that is lit for every home and away victory to increase fan engagement and further deepen its connection with the city. So of course the comments were hilarious, but I think it's a really cool tradition. I know some college teams do this.
So wait, so they're beaming it above the sky, or they're beaming it on the arena?
They're beaming it from the arena up. It's like a purple line. It just looks like a purple line, which I think is really cool. Like, you'll be like, oh, they won. You know, you don't have to go to Twitter to find out if they won. You just look outside at the stadium. But either way, there were some jokes saying that this isn't going to happen very often. I didn't want to go there, but
I don't want to go there either. You're saying all this, not me.
Yeah, I think it's a really cool thing, though. I think a lot of, like, you know, like, I know in Philly, they buildings light up and stuff like that. So I think this is a cool way for Sacramento to do it.
You think they got to adjust the flight patterns around there potentially? Like, if you're shooting
Probably.
a massive purple beam into the air, that feels like it would get into a pilot's eye and cause a problem.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Like, I wonder what that's just random things that pop into my head.
Can you
I
imagine that, like,
that.
over the intercom?
No, I don't want to imagine. No, I don't want to imagine that.
Not like that. It's like the pilot's like, we have a purple beam over here. What the hell is going on? Oh, the Kings finally won for the first time in 3 weeks. Wait, we got to adjust the flight pattern. They're up by 20 in the fourth quarter. Take a left.
Bro, I'm going to lose my mind if I've been on a cross-country flight and I hear the pilot go, oh, the Kings are up 20. We got to take a left. Oh, my God.
Oh, my.
All right, falling for me this week. You got to go. No, you got to go first. Mine's too serious. I can't follow that up with my fallen. It's way too heavy again.
Okay, yeah. We got to stay. We got to sprinkle in the fun stuff in between the heavy stuff. We can't have a whole heavy episode.
Help.
Fallen for me is LeBron James. He has a 50% true shooting percentage. You know who has a 51.6 true shooting percentage? That would be Russell Westbrook, who is getting blamed for all of the Lakers' problems right now. By the way, LeBron's got the second lowest of any 20-point per game scorer. Only CJ McCollum is behind him. I think that's worth mentioning too, because CJ and the Pelicans. But the other day, Westbrook off the bench in a loss to the Jazz had 28 points, 3 rebounds, and 6 assists. He was 4 for 19. He was 9 for 14 shooting. In 30 minutes, he outscored LeBron and Anthony Davis. Let's start the Russ isn't the problem debate.
All right. Well, hang on. I'm not going that far. I do. Russ coming off the bench and embracing that role. And that, I mean, that would be the ideal situation for the Lakers and for Russ going forward. Like, if Russ can cook off the bench role, that would allow him, because, you know, that contract is up. Like, that's the role that would keep him in the league for a couple of years. Like, be that spark off the bench, allow him to do the things that he's good at. Like, basically, you know, the saying has always been, let Russ be Russ. Off the bench, I think that's fine. You can live with that. It's just I worry about playing it with the starters a ton, but small sample size, but definitely a little encouraging there. Yeah, the Lakers look bad. There's no way around it. I mean, they're 2-6 right now. And the worst part is, again, there's not even the incentive to be bad with that pick being owed to New Orleans. Like, the Pelicans are sitting there in 5th right now and just going, we might get another top 3 pick this year. Like, that should potentially be a scary sight for anybody. Oh my God, imagine if they got one. Could you imagine if they got Wembanyama somehow? Oh, and the Lakers would miss him because they did. Oh, no, man. All right, never mind. I mean, they won a title with Anthony Davis. Like, that's the thing, is it's going to be worth it all the time, no matter what. But, like, oh, man, if you can't get Wembanyama because of that. Yeah, I mean, again, LeBron is always in the category of, I have to see the decline to believe it. Like, you're just always going to give him that benefit of the doubt. But yeah, it's been not great going right now. I would imagine the shooting goes up a little bit, but you do wonder, again, with this being father time is undefeated. We're seeing it in football with Tom Brady a little bit. Finally, LeBron's kind of been in that category of, like, I have to see the decline before my eyes before I start to believe it. But I mean, yeah, we could be seeing it. Like, it's definitely.
Well, here's the thing with LeBron. Oh, I'm going the wrong way. With LeBron, I guess we're kinda seeing it. I would say 2017, 2018, he was shooting 54%. 2018, 2019's 51, 1920's 49. He popped back up the last 2 years into the 50%, but then this year right now he's at 43%. So like there has been, while it's been waverly, it is kind of starting to go down a little bit.
Yeah.
Um and not like significant though. Although his 3-point percentage now is a 20% 3-point
And
percentage.
that's the bigger worry to me.
Yeah.
Like, if I'm gonna harp on something, that's the one I'm worried about. Like, if LeBron can't shoot the like part of his a lot of the reason that he's been able to extend his game as long as he has and be as great is because he's become a better shooter over the years. Like, he's never gonna be Steph Curry. No one's suggesting he's that level of a 3-point shooter, but like he's been one of the better ones here in the league the past few years. If that falls off, especially on a team that we know needs 3-point shooting more than anything else, that would be a massive problem.
He is up. Compared to last year, he's about even with how many three-pointers he's taken a game, and that's like 8 or 7 a game.
Yeah.
But that's way up compared to, the first few years in the Lakers where he was shooting maybe 6, or if you even go back to when he went back to Cleveland, he was at like 5 or 4 a game. So
Yeah.
like
Well, and,
it
and
is
you
way
wonder,
up.
yeah, because you wonder with the athleticism too. Like that is part of the aging process, is whereas like LeBron, we know has been the superhuman athlete as well, and you would just expect that to go away a little bit.
Mhm. Mhm.
Not significant. Again, we're talking about small margins here. Like we're like you said, we're in an increase of 1 or 2 attempts a game. That's not really a earth shattering revelation here, but
Mhm.
the 3-point shooting on a team that desperately needs it, especially when Anthony Davis isn't obviously knocking it down like that either this year, that would be the thing I'd be worried about.
Yeah.
Among the litany of things that I'm worried about with the Lakers. All right, falling for me is Miles Bridges. Pled no contest to felony domestic violence. He avoided jail, 3 years of probation, but I mean, we talked about these charges. Like those are the fact that you're pleading no contest and admitting to doing that is nasty behavior.
Mhm.
Um, I personally don't think he deserves to be in the NBA anymore. I think that that's just the reality of it. Like I don't think after you put your hands on a woman like that that you should. I don't know. I don't think you deserve a redemption, but that's my opinion. We'll see if he gets one. But yeah, just I mean, if you admitted to doing that, I don't. There's not really much else to say.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. Like in most cases, I am a fan of second chances, but oof, I think there are certain things that you can get second chances for, but maybe in this situation you don't get to do it in the NBA.
Like
Um,
I never root for people to go to jail, but like if he had ended up in jail, I would have been like, all right, yeah, he kind of earned
Seems
that.
about right. Yeah.
Um,
So yeah, I mean it's like you said, uh, a rough week news wise for the NBA.
Yeah, it was Nat, and like we didn't really talk about we talked a little bit about the Primo news last week. Sam
Mhm.
and I did with him getting cut and with him just with it going from mental health or him saying he needs mental health issue to like, no, you were exposing yourself to women, bro. That's not mental health.
Mhm.
I mean, I guess it is in a way, but like that's not hey, I'm having a bad day. Like there's a big difference there.
Right.
Um, again, you'll let the lawsuit play out there, but yeah, that's a super damning report for the Spurs if they knew about that for 10 months. Like, bro, Josh Primo was on marketing campaigns. It's not even like, oh, he was just a guy that was on the roster. Like, no, they were actively pushing him as part of this core.
Yeah.
Um, in a season where you talk about the Spurs, they should be. I mean, we should be looking at them as well. I know they're only 5-4, but it's like that's one of the better kind of early stories in the NBA. We've all been talking about what the Spurs were supposed to be this year. Talk about some of their young guys, but that's
Mhm.
a real quick way to take away or to take that away fast.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's get into it. So, you've been, like I said, you've been off for 2 weeks doing your wedding thing. About 8 or 9 games in for most teams at this point.
Yep.
You don't want to get again too hot takey with it. It's always the balance early in the season. But what is really what's come to your mind or what stood out to you early on?
So I kind of categorized teams into like wow categories.
Mhm.
One wow being like wow, and the other being like whoa, like not good. If that makes sense, I feel like that made sense.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I'll just go East and West because that's just how I have the conference standings up right now. In the good wow for the East, I put the Bucks, the Cavs, the Hawks in that. The Raptors, I don't because I kind of expect them to be there. I didn't put the Celtics there because I kind of expected them to be there. I feel like the Hawks being in fourth, while it is essentially a tie with the Celtics and Raptors, I feel like because the Hawks were so down last year, people weren't as high on them. So them being in the top four is at least as of right now. I know it's a tie, but being up there is kind of good. Cavs, we knew they were going to be good, but it clicked really quick. I mean, they only have one loss, and the Bucks being the only undefeated team in the NBA still at 8-0 as of recording this, I think puts them in that wow category, even though we knew they were going to be the number one or number two.
Oh, no, they look dominant. Like the Bucks are my title favorite. And they just have gone out and said, no, yeah, we are right away. Like it was just kind of what you want them
Don't
to do.
forget
Like
about us. We were
they're
in
not
them
worried.
last year.
And they're
Yeah,
not worried about it because they've won a title before. So they have, they have
get it.
rightfully have that confidence.
They get it.
Yeah, Cleveland is really like Donovan Mitchell. I got to be honest, like maybe I was a little lower than I should have been after how the way that it ended in Utah last year.
I
And
was
I did
what
worry
did I say about the Cavs? I said this is a good move, but it doesn't get them anywhere next year. And I mean, it may not. We're only 8
I
games
thought it would
in,
get
but
them up a step, but like it looks like it's really getting them up a step.
yeah.
Like they could give somebody a run. I worried about the defensive fit with Garland and Mitchell. And I mean, to be fair, Garland just came back. Like Garland's missed a lot of time with that eye injury, and he looked great his first game back. I'm excited to see him on the floor. But I mean, it's a testament to just Jared Allen being great defensively, but two is Evan Mobley's continued development as well. Like he's just everywhere. Like the guy has been, and that really, I guess, was the key to this too. Going in for Mitchell is that you're betting on those two guys in particular, Garland and Mobley, would get a lot better. So far, year two, Mobley has been great. Donovan Mitchell, though, looks like he could be the best player on a finals team, and that's something that I don't know if I've ever said before. Like I didn't just, I don't know. It kind of felt like you didn't know if he could be the true number one. He looks like it right now in Cleveland. Again, you don't want to jump off, but they've been a really fun watch.
He's
And their depth has been good as well.
he's playing with that I'm going to prove you wrong mentality right now.
Yeah, and it looks like it for sure. If there's a wow in Toronto to me, it's Pascal Siakam. And unfortunately, like hopefully that injury is not too bad, but like Siakam, I thought by far played his best season last year, was rewarded with that all NBA spot, third all NBA team. You knew that he could be that last year. He was, again, one of the best players in the league, a top 15 player last year. It looks like he's found even another gear this year early on. They're swarming teams defensively, but like Siakam's offensive development has really been impressive here. And that's the type of thing that can get Toronto from a pesky, we're going to bother the hell out of you first round playoff team to, maybe they can start making a run at this again. They're far from the favorites still, in my opinion, but they haven't they've had a lot of injuries early on too. Like Van Vliet's missed some time. If they're able to play as well defensively as they are and get fully healthy, like they're again, it's like last year. No one's going to want to play them in the first round.
Yeah. And so my whoa, the bad wow is going to go in the Eastern. We'll just say in the East for this since we have it up. Would probably go to the Sixers, the Heat, the Nets, and really that's it. I would say more so wow in a disappointing way for the Heat because I thought they were more locked in. And the fact that they've only had one conference win too is kind of surprising. Again, they're 4-6. One win puts them potentially in fourth, tied for fourth. You know what I mean? Like it's so tight right now. So it's hard to give them too much of like a hate. But I would say them being, just off the standings right now, them being in 10th, 11th, and 12th is definitely a disappointment.
Yeah, I full disclosure, I couldn't be less worried about Miami. I think
Yeah,
they're fine.
I am too.
Their depth isn't probably as good as it was last year, but I'm not particularly worried about that long term. I think they're going to round themselves into shape. The Sixers, again, it's more of just they have to stay afloat now amid injuries. Like I worry about the standings element of it more than I do anything else. Besides that, the East is kind of it's about what we expected, right? Like other than Cleveland jumping off this early, I think has been the big story in the Eastern Conference. Like we'll see what happens with, like, you would imagine Brooklyn, Miami, and Philly all kind of get themselves back into that play-in position. Like I don't expect them to be that bad for this long. And everything else is really kind of what you expected it, right? Like your bottom three are Charlotte, Orlando, and Detroit. I don't think anybody is really stunned there. It's like it's to the West at this point. I guess what's caught your eye there?
Yeah, so we'll go with the good wow for the West right off the rip. Trailblazers, Jazz, Pelicans, probably the top 3 wows, because the Trailblazers are essentially the number 1. They are the number 1, tied with the Suns for, the Western Conference. The Jazz are 7-3 at 3rd place, and the Pelicans are 5-3. We knew the Pelicans were gonna be better, so them being there is like a less of a wow. We knew the Trailblazers were gonna be better, but we didn't think they were gonna be essentially number 1 seed. And Jazz, I didn't even give them a chance to be top 8 after, like, the first 3 games. So,
No, the
they
Jazz are
are.
scrappy. You gotta
Yeah.
love that. Those guys, it's all the vets early on. Not even just Conley and Jordan Clarkson who are still there. It's guys like Laurie Marketing who just has
7
come off
7
Euro
wins
basket.
7 wins probably just got them out of contention for for Victor already.
Yeah, yeah, early on. They got to just lose the rest of the season in a row. No, I mean, it is crazy. They're a full 6 ahead of Houston right now, who's 1-8. Yeah, Utah for sure early on, and that is the question. You do wonder how
Do
long
they keep it up?
this continues for. But definitely really impressive because, like we said, they were the kind of the lock for everybody to plummet. Regular season Phoenix, I think, deserves a lot of love here. The way they bounce back. I mean, they've got the best point differential in the NBA right now. Just kidding.
Which they
Cleveland and
had
Milwaukee
which
have better.
they
They have the best in the West, though.
Okay, I was gonna say they had that last year, so it's not like it's not surprising.
I know, but at least early on, you wonder again how they react from a gut punch, and they're never going to
Yeah,
be able to prove it until playoff time. But at
right.
least if they're good in the regular season, it kind of bodes well. You could imagine that you could sell yourself a lot more on that redemption. Yeah, New Orleans I mean, Zion, that windmill the other night, just great to see him. He looks healthy. Like, that's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Portland, too, I definitely think is absolutely worth a mention. Like, not just because Dame is back, but it's the depth guys that have stepped up as well, and they kind of bet big on that.
Mhm.
And again, only 6 games or only 8 games in for Portland, but give Chauncey Billups a lot of credit too. I think he's done a good job at this offense this year.
Yep, I agree. From a wow on the bad side of things, I would put the Timberwolves, the Warriors, the Lakers, and maybe even the Clippers a little bit because there's the Kawhi Leonard stuff going on. They're 5-4. They're at that 8 seed, but it was such like an anticipated start, and it feels like they had like a false start almost,
They
even
did,
though they are 5-4.
yeah, and they've won 3 straight. Paul
Yep.
George is playing great, so I think they're going to round in. I'm not as worried about that.
I think it's just more
Minnesota is still,
because of the Kawhi stuff that everyone's talking about. It's more like they're like, is this gonna work right now? I don't know, but is he healthy? So
yeah.
we'll see.
Minnesota, again, they're still kind of just because with such a
Feeling
massive change, they're in the
it.
give it more time. The Warriors early on, and I mean, again, I think the Warriors are going to be fine, but the Warriors are definitely missing depth. I think more than they like a lot of these guys that didn't come back, namely, Gary Payton, for example, Otto Porter Jr. are probably the two that everybody is going to go to right off the rip. But even like a Damian Lee a little bit. Um, that's the depth early on that they've been missing. You like the young guys getting more burn with Kuminga and Wiseman, but that is kind of the growing pains with it. Um, those guys mattered last year. Like
Mhm.
when they rallied into playoff form, and again, it's early on. They're the defending champions. Like I think it's hard to get back to another finals just like that. Like I don't want to jump off the cliff with them, but like yeah, there have been some early worry signs in Golden State about maybe how much they missed that depth a little more than we all anticipated.
Yeah, I agree. And then Lakers, we've already gone down that road, but 2-6
Yeah.
is a rough start.
Well, they can't shoot, and it's the fact that they can't shoot, they can't really get better, and they don't have their draft pick doesn't matter this year. So but to that point, it's like how much can you keep beating the dead horse? Like if anything, I'm more interested in just watching Russ. Like I am. I'm interested in watching Russ off the bench. You see what happens there, and I'm gonna watch LeBron.
It's wild that that's the reason to watch the Lakers right now is to see what Russ is doing.
Well, it started so bad that you just wonder. It's like, yo, is a Hall of Famer going to flame out of the league like this? Like that was my biggest question, I guess. Um, where again, it's only been a couple games, but it looks maybe like that isn't quite the case just yet, and so you hope it stays that case. Like you just don't want it to end like that. You
He's
never
he's
like
making
seeing it.
yeah, he's making a final stand.
Yeah, you got to make it somewhere.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody, for listening to this episode of the Driving Dish NBA podcast. Appreciate you guys as always. And great to have my pal Justin back. Leave us a review on iTunes, good or bad. We will read them on the podcast. If you're not an Apple user, Google Play Store, Spreaker, Spotify, Amazon Music, Stitcher, anywhere else you can find a podcast, you can find us.
Yep. And find us on YouTube, Driving Dish NBA on YouTube. If you would like to check it out there, you can watch the video version.